The first time I noticed something was wrong, I was already on my knees, scrubbing a stain that refused to fade. Not lighten, not thin out, just stay. The police tape had come down hours ago. Neighbors were back in their apartments, pretending not to stare, while I hauled hoses and chemical bins through the hallway. According to the paperwork, the case was closed. Domestic dispute. No suspect. No follow-up, just cleanup. I leaned closer, pressing the brush harder into the carpet fibers. The stain looked darker than it should have, almost glossy, like it was still wet. When I touched it with my glove, I felt warmth. Not heat, warmth. The kind you feel from skin, not liquid. I told myself it was the cleaner reacting with the fibers. That happens. Chemicals do weird things. Still, when I stood up, the room felt wrong. Too quiet. Not empty, just paused. I worked faster after that. Walls, baseboards, couch cushions, the corner where the body had been found. Every surface was wiped, neutralized, bagged. I followed protocol like I always did because protocol is what keeps you from thinking about what happened in a room before you arrived. By the time I finished, the place looked normal, clean, ready for someone else to live in. Then I checked my tablet to log the job as complete. The address blinked once and refreshed. Same case number, same timestamp. Pending. I radioed dispatch and told them the system hadn't updated. They put me on hold for a few seconds, then came back sounding confused. "Sir, you were already cleared from that location earlier today." I looked back at the carpet. The stain had returned. Not spread, not bled through, just there again, in the exact same shape. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about cleaning anymore, and that some scenes don't end just because the police leave. I told myself the first repeat was a glitch. The second was coincidence. By the third, I stopped pretending. It started with apartments, cheap ones, the kind where tenants come and go and nobody asks questions. Same layouts, same stairwells, same smell of old carpet and burned coffee in the halls. Different victims. But the mess was always familiar. Blood in the same corner, smears along the same wall, even the same overturned chair, like someone had staged the room and forgot to change the props. I asked dispatch if we were double booking addresses. They laughed. "Sir, we don't revisit closed scenes. Once they're cleared, they're cleared." Except I was standing in them. Again. Clients acted just as confused as I felt. One woman swore she'd already paid us a week earlier. Another asked why we were charging twice when it just happened yesterday. Their timelines never matched mine, and none of them remembered calling us back. I started keeping my own notes, photos, timestamps. I compared them after shifts, lining up images from different days. Same blood patterns, same broken lamp, same cracked mirror, even the same spiderweb fracture across the glass. Nothing aged, nothing decayed. It was like the rooms were stuck, replaying the moment something went wrong, and I was the only one allowed to see the reset. That's when I noticed something else. No matter how many times I cleaned, the jobs never overlapped. No coworkers, no supervisors checking in. Every repeat call came straight to me, like the system had made up its mind. I wasn't just assigned to these scenes. I belonged to them. The first time I heard it, I thought someone had come in behind me. A soft footstep. I was working in a narrow hallway, wiping down handprints along the wall when the floor creaked just out of sight in the living room. I froze, listening for another sound. Nothing. I called out, asked if anyone was there. No answer. When I stepped into the living room, the chair I'd already cleaned was tipped over again, its legs resting in the same awkward angle I remembered from before. I stared at it, trying to convince myself I'd just forgotten to set it upright. Then I saw the footprints. Bare, damp, pressed into the carpet fibers, leading away from the dark stain toward the bathroom. I hadn't touched that area yet. I followed them slowly, heart thudding loud enough to drown out the hum of my respirator. The bathroom door was closed. I was certain I'd left it open. When I turned the knob, it resisted for half a second, then gave. Inside, the mirror was fogged, like someone had just showered. The sink was running, water pooling near the drain. I shut it off with shaking hands and wiped the glass. For a split second, I thought I saw a shape behind me. When I turned, the room was empty. Back in the hallway, I heard breathing. Not close, not far, just present. Like the sound belonged to the walls themselves. I packed up early that night, logged the job as complete even though the tablet still read pending. I didn't look back at the carpet before I left. The next morning, dispatch called me in. Same address, same case number. "Client reports the scene is active again," the operator said flatly. "You're the nearest unit." Active. That was the word they used. Not dirty, not incomplete. Active. And I understood then that whatever was happening in those rooms wasn't a memory. It was ongoing. I didn't see them right away. That was the worst part. I was halfway through wiping down the kitchen counter when I felt that same wrongness in the air, like the room was holding its breath. The stain was back in the living room, darker than before, and the chair had tipped over again. I kept my eyes on my work, pretended not to notice. That's when the shadow moved. Not fast, not sudden. It shifted, stretching across the wall near the hallway entrance, thickening where no body should have been standing. I followed it with my eyes before I let myself turn. They were standing exactly where the body had been found. A person-shaped silhouette, slightly bent forward, arms hanging wrong at the sides, head tilted like it was mid-fall and had just stopped. Their face was there, but unfocused, features smudged like wet paint that never fully dried. I blinked, and the shape collapsed into the stain. Not vanished, folded. The carpet rippled, then went still. I backed toward the door, hands shaking so badly I dropped my spray bottle. It clattered across the floor and rolled to a stop right at the edge of the stain. Slowly, deliberately, it tipped over. Cleaner spilled out, soaking into the dark patch. Nothing changed. I realized then that the room wasn't reacting to the mess anymore. It was reacting to me. I left without finishing, didn't log the job, didn't answer dispatch when they called. I went straight to the company office and demanded to see my supervisor. The front desk clerk just stared at me. Then she checked her screen. "You're not scheduled today," she said. "Your last completed assignment was 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks. I had cleaned that apartment 4 times since then. According to them, I'd never gone back. I broke into the records room that night, not the digital system. That was useless. Anything tied to my name showed clean, normal schedules. No repeat calls, no flagged addresses, just a steady list of routine jobs. But the paper files were different. Boxes stacked in the back, unlabeled, collecting dust no one ever disturbed. I found my case numbers handwritten on the tabs, dozens of them, all marked with the same code stamped in red ink. Persistent. Inside each folder were photos I had taken, not copies, the originals. Blood patterns, floor layouts, even my own boots at the edge of the frame in a few shots. They had been filing my work without telling me. I kept digging until I found a thinner folder tucked behind the rest. No name, just a date from 3 years ago and the same code. Inside was an employee report, my replacement. The note said he had started seeing scene manifestation and temporal stagnation. Same symptoms, same complaints. Final entry. Technician failed to disengage. Scene reclaimed. No body recovered. I finally understood what post-clearance really meant. The police closed the case, but something in those rooms didn't. And the company's job wasn't to clean it. It was to keep it contained, handled, ignored long enough that it didn't spread. That's why they never sent partners. That's why they never escalated. And that's why, when one cleaner stopped responding, they just hired another. My phone buzzed in my pocket. New assignment, different address, same code. Persistent. And for the first time, I wondered if the scenes were following me now, or if they'd always been waiting for someone like me. The new address wasn't an apartment, it was a house, small, single-story, peeling paint on the porch rail. I knew it before I pulled into the driveway. I hadn't been back in 20 years, but my hands still remembered where the doorbell stuck, where the front steps sagged, where the hallway narrowed just before the bedrooms. My childhood home. According to the file, the incident had happened that morning, but the layout was wrong. The couch was where our dining table used to be, the TV where my mother's piano had stood. It wasn't recreating the house as it had been. It was recreating how I remembered it. The stain was in the hallway, same place I'd knelt the night my father collapsed. Same shape my brain had replayed 1,000 times in the dark. I dropped my equipment and backed away, but the door closed on its own behind me, soft and final. I heard movement in the bedroom, slow footsteps, waiting. I didn't want to see it, but I knew what was there. Not my father, not really, but something wearing the outline of that night, stretched into a person-shaped echo. The air felt thick, like breathing through wet cloth. My radio crackled. "Scene active," dispatch said calmly. "Containment in progress." Containment. They weren't sending help. They were watching. I understood then that the rooms weren't just replaying violence. They were learning, adapting, finding what hurt the cleaner most and using it to keep him inside. The house didn't want to be erased. It wanted to be remembered. And I was running out of ways to forget. I don't remember deciding to move forward. I just remember standing in the hallway and then being closer to the bedroom door. The footsteps had stopped. Whatever was inside was waiting for me to finish what I'd started years ago. I raised my sprayer, hands shaking, and soaked the stain until the chemical smell burned my lungs. I scrubbed until my arms went numb, until the carpet fibers finally lightened. For the first time since this started, the stain didn't come back. The room felt empty, not quiet, empty. I sagged against the wall, gasping, thinking maybe that was all it had wanted. A witness, an ending. My tablet chimed. Job complete. Relief hit so hard I laughed. Then I saw the new assignment populate beneath it. Same address, different name. Mine. The bedroom door opened. I saw myself standing there, not bleeding, not injured, just waiting. The realization came slow and awful. The scene wasn't trapping victims. It was replacing them. Every cleaner who failed to disengage didn't vanish. They became the next stain, the next outline, the next thing someone else would be sent to erase. I backed away, but the hallway stretched, walls sliding farther apart like the house was making room for me to stay. The radio crackled one last time. "Containment successful," dispatch said. "Reassignment pending." I felt the floor grow warm beneath my knees. Familiar. Comforting. And as my hands sank into the carpet, I understood the final rule of this job. You don't leave the mess. You become it. If you made it this far, then you already know. Some places don't want to be cleaned. They want to be remembered. And sometimes, the price of forgetting is leaving someone else behind to finish the job. If this story kept you listening, make sure to leave a like. It tells the algorithm that you want more long-form horror like this, set in quiet places where terrible things refuse to stay buried. And if you're new here, subscribe to Campfire Horror Stories, where every week we share original tales about strange jobs, forgotten roads, and the moments when the world quietly goes wrong. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Do you think the scenes were cursed? Or do you think the company knew exactly what they were sending him into? Until next time, lock your doors, trust your instincts, and I'll see you by the fire.